Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 12th of February 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into the news from the last 24 hours. So, I think the biggest piece of news was that Ray Dalio, famed investor, is going to be a keynote speaker at the CoinDesk Consensus event. Now, for those who don't know, this is a pretty major event, and this year it's being held virtually due to COVID-19, of course. But basically, it brings together a lot of people in kind of the ecosystem that I guess crosses all kind of paths, right? You know, we usually have like different conferences for like just Bitcoin only or Ethereum only or whatever, right? But Consensus brings together not just the Bitcoiners or the Ethereans, but both of them together, and then people from outside the ecosystem, traditional finance people. So it's got a big reach. It's one of the biggest conferences, if not the biggest of the year, I think. And Ray Dalio, for those who don't know, is a legendary investor. He is a founder of Bridgewater Associates. He has a net worth of about $20 billion and considered one of the greatest investors of all time. And he's more of a macro investor. And what that means is that he takes a more long-term kind of outlook on things and likes to invest with a macro kind of outlook. He's informed a lot of my thinking around certain things. He's got a great video on YouTube called How the Economic Machine Works. It is absolutely fantastic, and it explains kind of exactly that, how I guess the economy in general works on like a macro time scale. I highly recommend going and watching that. But basically, his Bitcoin views or his crypto views have been kind of tempered, I guess, over the last few years. I don't think he's outright said he doesn't think it's a good investment or anything like that. Maybe he has, I can't remember exactly. But he's been kind of like, I guess, neutral to maybe bearish on it for a little while. But he seems to have been coming around to it lately, and I think a lot of it's got to do with the COVID-19 and then what that led to, all the money printing, right? In not only in the US, but in other countries around the world. So I take it that Ray's probably looking at this and thinking, could Bitcoin be a digital gold, right? Could it be a better store of value than gold? And, a lot of people think it can be. And personally, I think it can be a better store of value than gold. It's got much more desirable properties. So yeah, he's getting, more, I kind of guess like more like warmed up to the idea of investing in this asset class. Now, people are speculating that because he's going to be the keynote speaker at Consensus in May, so it goes from May 24th to 27th, it's a virtual event. People are speculating that he's going to announce a Bitcoin purchase or a purchase for Bitcoin and putting it on either his company's balance sheet or his own kind of like personal investment. And I don't think that's too far-fetched, right? I remember talking a couple of weeks ago how people were speculating that Elon Musk or Tesla had bought BTC because he put it in his bio, and that turned out to be true, right? So it seems like we're just seeing the dominoes kind of fall here of these traditional finance folk kind of coming in, taking a position. It's pretty much Bitcoin first, but I think it's going to trickle down to the other kind of assets, like especially ETH and DeFi and stuff like that. But we didn't see this in 2017. I spoke about this on yesterday's Refuel, and this is the main reason why I'm still very, very bullish, even though we're kind of crazy right now, is because this traditional finance money, this kind of like, I guess, old money, you can call it, was pretty much nowhere to be seen in 2017. You had bits and pieces here and there of people saying, yeah, we might invest, we might do this, we might do that. But then obviously kind of like the bubble popped and everyone lost interest in it. But now that I think, Bitcoin especially has come back from bear markets like 3 or 4 times now, people are kind of looking at this and being like, okay, it's over $1 trillion asset class now. Bitcoin is approaching $1 trillion on its own. All these other people are investing in it, right? Why aren't I? So it becomes it's too risky to be the first one in, but then it becomes too risky to not be in at all because you're gonna be late essentially. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these kind of TradFi people come in and companies and institutions come in, which is a very key difference to 2017, and it's why I keep saying that we cannot use the same top signals that we used in 2017 anymore. Not to say there's not going to be local tops along the way where we drop 30%, I'm sure there will be, but in terms of like a cycle top, I have no idea where that is at this point. We could keep going like this for a little while if these companies and these institutions keep plowing money in and keep announcing it. There is diminishing returns. Every time you hear another announcement, you're just like, okay, cool, and then okay, cool, and then eventually it just becomes like, oh, meh, who cares? Like, that's old news now. And that's kind of how bull markets end. It's like, it's when these really bullish news, everyone's just kind of brushing off, right? They're just like, oh, I've seen this before, this isn't making me bullish anymore. And that's kind of how it does. It just kind of fizzles out. Like there is a kind of explosion at the end of it, but it kind of like fizzles out, and then that's how we go into a bear market. But I just don't know where we're going to go from here. I mean, I'm never going to say like this time is different, because, I don't think that applies on like a macro scale in terms of like boom and bust cycles. But in terms of like it being different to 2017 and different players and different key players, it definitely is, right? It's very obvious that it is. And it's hilarious how ICOs were like the main use case in 2017 for Ethereum, right? It was the main money driver into kind of the ecosystem. And now ICOs are basically like still non-existent. Like even the IEOs, the initial exchange offerings, are pretty much dead as well. We do still have token launches, of course, but they're more like these. We'll just put the token on Uniswap, and then price discovery can happen there. So from that perspective, it's just amazing that ETH's way over all-time high now. Well, not way over, but like over all-time high now, and we don't have that kind of ICO money that pushed ETH up a lot in 2017. So ETH itself has matured a lot too. So this time is different from a lot of different angles, but don't be fooled into thinking that this time is different in that we can't go into another bear market, because that's how you don't sell, right? That's how you never sell. That's how you say to yourself, I'm just going to hold. It's going to be fine. Maybe it is fine. I don't know, but I think that's unlikely, because the common denominator across all markets, across all time, is humans, right? Like humans are always there, and humans don't really change on these shorter time frames. Maybe they change over millions of years or hundreds of thousands of years, but over short time frames like decades, humans don't change their nature, right? We're greedy, we suffer from fear and like extreme fear and extreme greed. We suffer from all kinds of emotions, biases, right? That's why the time is never different. It's always the same kind of boom and bust cycle that we see play out, not just in crypto, but across the global economy as well. And it's not just human emotion, right? It's the different ways things happen, like especially with monetary policy. There's different levers that governments can pull, central banks can pull, and that this is, and because there's debt that the economy basically runs on debt, we have these boom and bust cycles. But Ray Dalio's video about the economic machine actually explains all this, so I highly recommend going and watching that, and it'll give you a better kind of macro view of the markets, and you'll be able to better position yourself. And it did heavily inform my investing within crypto, if I'm being honest. And I'm a macro guy. I take a kind of long-term outlook on everything that I kind of invest in. Well, most things. Some things I'll like flip or whatever. Everyone likes to have some fun, but for me and for most people, I actually think that a long-term strategy is much more healthy and much better than trying to day trade. Like most people can't do that. Most people will lose. But if you're a day trader and you're profitable and you enjoy it, then go for it. Nothing against that. But if you're an investor and you want to take more of a macro and long-term outlook, Ray Dalio is the person to read. He's got books. He's got blog posts that he does on his LinkedIn, Twitter threads. That video I just told you about, he's got everything. So definitely go check that out. But yeah, very, very looking forward to seeing him at Consensus and see what he has to say. Maybe he doesn't disclose a position in BTC. Maybe he's just more bullish on it. I'd be very surprised if he hasn't bought it at this point. Like very surprised. But we'll have to wait and see, I think. So Josh Stark from the Ethereum Foundation put out this tweet today saying that $1 million has been allocated to 25 different projects in this staking community grantee announcement here. I think I went through this on one of the refuels maybe last week or a few days ago on February 9th. So yeah, I did. Basically, all these different teams being funded by, or I guess like not funded by, but given grants by the Ethereum Foundation for their work with ETH2. So it's really awesome to see that, $1 million went to that. And it was across different things like community and education, like guides and kind of stuff like that. The tooling, data analysis and visualization, and research in general. So yeah, really, really cool to see the Ethereum Foundation supporting the community through these grants, especially in the ETH2 space. So for those who have been following me on Twitter, I've been tweeting out the past couple of days that gas prices are actually going to under 100 Gwei at times, and I think if I think the time, if I had to put a time on it, for me it's around like 4 or 5 p.m., which I think for the US, at least like the West Coast, is like 10 or 11 p.m. and then the East Coast is maybe like 1 a.m. So if you're up at that time, if you're in the US, right, in Europe I think it's like early morning, then definitely try and get some transactions in, because the gas fees right now is what, 158. if it's under 100, that's like you're saving a third on gas, and you should queue up some transactions for that for sure. I mean, I think making a list of things that you don't want to do today and that can wait until gas prices come down, and then when gas prices do come down, you quickly go through that list and do it, is the best way to approach this. Now, obviously, it's not fun having to do that, but if you are waiting for that, then yeah, definitely, there's been kind of gaps about an hour where Gwei has been under 100 over the past couple days. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on that. So Hayden Adams from Uniswap put out a really great tweet thread today explaining basically how the investors in Uniswap, especially the early investors, have added value to Uniswap as a platform. Now, for those who don't know, Uniswap basically began really early on, maybe 2017 or 2018, with a grant from the Ethereum Foundation to Hayden to build the first version of Uniswap. And the grant was worth $100,000. So it wasn't that much, right? That's 1 year's of like a kind of like entry-level developer salary in most of the US. So definitely not, nothing to kind of like write home about. But basically, that funded the first version of Uniswap. And then when Uniswap was up and running and people and kind of investors saw that, their first investor, Paradigm, I think, put $1 million into them as a sole investor in 2019. So early 2019 at EdCon, they invested $1 million into Uniswap then. And then at the time, I think I've spoken about this before, how during 2019 tokens were regarded as basically dead. Like pretty much everyone thought that if your project had a token, it was a liability. So there was I don't know if there was any plans at the time to do a token for Uniswap, but it was definitely not a popular thing to do. So it wasn't top of mind for anyone. But I'm sure it was like in the conversation, but I don't know for sure. But anyway, Paradigm put $1 million of their own money into Uniswap, and I'm sure they didn't expect to kind of like get the return they've had at this point. But the thing with Paradigm as a fund, for those who don't know them, they actually make very concentrated bets. So they don't just invest in everything, but they make very concentrated bets, and they basically help their portfolio companies more than any other investor that I've heard of, at least. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I've heard very good things about Paradigm. A16Z and USV are much bigger investors. So A16Z is a famed investor. They're huge, right? They don't just do crypto, they do kind of tech in general, and they've been around for like 20 years. And then USV is the same thing, Union Square Ventures. So yeah, Paradigm is just a crypto asset kind of focused fund, and they were the first into Uniswap, and then A16Z and USV joined later. But basically in this thread from Hayden, he says that the investors don't just give them their capital, they give them kind of like help with across like a bunch of different areas, and he actually lists them here. So he says they gave Hayden and his team help on advising, sourcing candidates, conducting interviews, making introductions, writing smart contracts, writing white papers, reading, explaining other people's paper smart contracts, historical analysis, letting Hayden sleep on their couch, proofreading blog posts, insider info, content creation, breakthrough Uniswap-related math research, playing Halo 3, educating regulators and institutions, product design feedback, and a whole lot more. I don't know what else you could add to that list. That's a very long list. But basically, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because as a kind of person that's, I guess, both an investor and an advisor to a lot of different projects, this is what you don't see going on behind the curtain. When a lot of people see that these VCs get into a project early on and invest in it, they just think, oh, the VC's got a massive discount. They're just going to like sit on that, and then when the token goes live, they're going to make bank. There are certainly some investors like that, VCs and funds like that. I'm not denying that at all. But the ones with more of a long-term outlook and the best ones are the ones that actually help their portfolio companies across a wide range of different areas, as Hayden has listed here, and add a ton of value. And the best investors, like Paradigm, are the ones who actually make it so that if Paradigm didn't exist and wasn't a part of Uniswap's life, Uniswap's chance of success may have been a lot lower. So those are the kind of best investors there. So you could actually think of these investors as just part of the team at the end of the day, right? So, and no one ever complains about team allocations, really. I mean, unless it's like something really crazy, like 50% or something. But in general, like a team allocation of 20 to 30% is not really kind of scoffed at, right? So you can just think of an investors as part of the team. And without these early investors, it would have been very, very hard for Uniswap to succeed. And I think especially because Uniswap raised during 2019, which was like a depths of a bear market, and money was very scarce back then, especially for a project like Uniswap that didn't have any plans for a token. I'm sure they didn't have any plans for a token back then. And there was no kind of like obvious way they were going to make money. So, Paradigm took a big kind of bet here. Like, for those who were around in 2019, especially early 2019, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you weren't around, I'm telling you right now, it's a night and day difference. If you think it's like right now we're in like a bull market, money's flowing, everyone's making money, it feels like no one can lose, right? Everything's frothy. Think of like that, but then the complete opposite of it, right? Everyone's like losing money. Their paper gains have gone down. They just got through a brutal 2018 bear market. People don't have money to invest. Ethereum's kind of like main use case of ICOs was dead. DeFi was very nascent, like extremely nascent. It was like a kind of like plaything essentially, right? All the kind of like Bitcoiners were calling Ethereum dead, and ETH especially had like completely tanked against Bitcoin, which was really brutal as well. So you can basically draw that kind of like comparison, and that's how you understand that the best investments are usually made during bear markets, and that's where the most people make the most money, but they're also the hardest investments to make. And I wrote a little bit about this in today's Daily Gwei newsletter, where I basically said that being early is awesome, but being early and holding on during the toughest times is extremely difficult. And I've seen many people sell because they just couldn't handle it. It's mentally exhausting, especially in crypto, because you can sit there for like 2 years during the bear market waiting for ETH to go back up, or waiting for your token to go back up, right? And looking at it every day, and every time it pumps a little bit, you have a little bit of hope, right? You're like, oh, is this it? Are we finally moving back up? And for a lot of the time it wasn't. And in 2019 especially, ETH's price in the first half of 2019 went to like $380, and then it crashed back down to like 100 and something, like the low hundreds by the end of the year. And then we started moving back up in 2020, and then we had COVID. But I think in 2020, even with the COVID dump, people were still very bullish. But I just like, I think the people who weren't around and didn't experience it just don't fully appreciate how bad it was, like how depressing it was for everyone involved at the time. But what got us all through it was that we really believed in this mission, and the builders believed in this mission, and these investors like Paradigm believed in this mission, and they were happy to put money into this sort of stuff. So yeah, I think just looking at like the surface level stuff, like VCs getting into early rounds is wrong. A lot of the VCs I know and a lot of the firms I know that I talk to, they are extremely helpful. Like, they are very friendly. They are not out there just to extract as much value as possible. They are there to add as much value as possible. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of give a note there, but I'll link this thread in the YouTube description. You can go check it out. It's a pretty good thread from Hayden here. So Reflexer Labs has announced a Series A round led by Panter Capital and Lemniscap. Lemniscap, I think that's how you say it. And then they have participation from the Venture DAO, the Lao, Div.vc, Divergence Ventures, Kane and Stani, who are in every single round as an angel these days, Cyrus Unesi, and Mariano Conti, who both worked at MakerDAO. So for those who don't know, Reflexer Labs is building a alternative decentralized stablecoin to DAI called RAI, and they're using a novel mechanism to do this that I don't fully understand, I'll be honest, because it's kind of a little bit complex, and I haven't really done a deep dive yet, but it's basically trying to be a fully kind of, I guess, like ETH-backed decentralized stablecoin. Because, I think what ended up happening was like a bunch of people got pretty disgruntled that Maker moved to multi-collateral DAI, right? Where DAI is backed by more than just ETH or more than just like decentralized assets. So I think that Reflexer Labs is kind of like an answer to this, or at least an attempt to be an answer to this. So yeah, they're building RAI here. Or Ray or Rai, not sure how to say it. It's spelled RAI, so Ray or Rai, whichever way you want to say it. Maybe Rai because die, right? Maybe I'm an idiot for saying Ray because there's no Y at the end there. But anyway, congrats to them on the raise for sure. I think this is great. I think having Cyrus and Mariano on board is extremely strong. I mean, Cyrus was head of risk at MakerDAO, and Mariano Conti was head of oracles and kind of like did a lot of the smart contract work and was at Maker for a while. And I think Cyrus joined MakerDAO in February of 2019 and left only recently, maybe a few months ago. So he was there for a little while as well. So yeah, big wins for them there. And of course, having Kane and Stani on board, can't go wrong there. Two of the best builders in DeFi. So congrats to them on the raise. How much did they raise? Actually, I'm not sure. $4.4 million raise. So yeah, I mean that's a pretty good raise, right? $4.4 million for a Series A. I'm sure they're gonna have a token for all of us kind of people to ape in, the ones that didn't get into this round. So we'll see how that goes for sure. So the Documenting Ethereum account here posted a picture or a chart at least that said Grayscale added 52,730 ETH over the past 24 hours to their kind of fund worth almost $100 million. So, I mean, I've spoken about Grayscale before, and as you can see on the chart, their fund was actually paused for quite a while. So, this kind of like, I guess you can see it here, that's flat, right? It was flat from like the 7th of December or whatever it was to like the 31st of January, where they kind of closed the fund off, and they did that for whatever reason. I didn't look into the reason, but they closed it off to new investors. And then recently, I think on like the 1st of Feb, they reopened it, and you can see it started going back up again. And it's gone back up pretty rapidly. They're approaching, I think they're at almost 3 million ETH held in Grayscale right now, which is like 2.8% of the supply or something like that. So there's very big appetite here from people in the, I guess, like traditional finance system that want ETH. And for those who don't know what this product is, Grayscale has a product called ETH, which is basically a tax advantage product for people to use that they can use in their retirement accounts. Because we don't have an ETH ETF or a BTC ETF, for example, that would do this, Grayscale basically created these products that do come with their own issues. I've spoken about the Grayscale premium before, and you've probably seen it spoken about before, where the price of the ETH kind of asset would get way ahead of the underlying price of ETH, and then arbitrages would come in and close the gap there, and that would mean that the people who bought ETH kind of got wrecked if they bought the top, which is unfortunate. But without an ETF, this is the only kind of vehicle that people have tax advantage access to ETH through. So yeah, I mean, it still just shows that there's just incredible demand for ETH, and this is kind of a black hole here. You don't really see this going down. As you can see, it only goes up. So it's just going to keep sucking in more ETH, which I think is going to be very bullish for the ETH price. And a bit of an alpha leak here, and this is an investment advice. Like ETH has obviously been kind of flat lately, right? It's like kind of trending sideways / up, while all this other kind of stuff in the market's been pumping. I don't think that's going to last very long, if I'm being honest. I think we might see a nice big move of ETH up, maybe even over this weekend. I think it's very very due for it. I think ETH is extremely undervalued for what it is still, considering how much activity is on the network, right? How much bullish kind of stuff's going on, right? The amount of ETH locked in DeFi, in ETH2, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't expect ETH to stay around this level for too much longer, but not investment advice. I'm not trading based on that thought. I have my ETH bag that I stacked during the bear market, of course, and I hope all of you did too. But basically, yeah, it's just more bullish news for ETH every day at this point. So ETHGlobal has announced their next hackathon called Scaling Ethereum, which is taking place from April 9th to May 14th. This, of course, will be an online hackathon where people can come and build scaling technologies. So different scaling implementations, all based on Ethereum, like, basically like ETH2, rollups, channels, ZK Snarks, ZK Starks, and, more, and optimistic rollups and things like that. So this is timely, of course, and really great. I'm glad to see ETHGlobal supporting this. I'm really, really excited to see what projects come out of this, because obviously scalability is top of mind for absolutely everyone right now. It is what I like to call the Ethereum scaling war effort, and I wrote about this a few months ago, I think in June of 2020, in the Daily Gwei newsletter, where I said that the entire ecosystem feels the pain of the high fees and the scalability issues. So we need to kind of like get a war effort together and do this. And, war efforts, for those who don't know, is basically this term given to this kind of like, I guess, effort that countries go through when they want to fund a war. So, everyone kind of puts their money in, the government sells bonds to people and they buy them, and then everyone kind of works together in times of war. And obviously there's no like war with fighting going on with Ethereum right now, but the reason I call it the scaling war effort is because everyone, needs to pull their resources together and help as much as they can to scale Ethereum. So ETHGlobal's one player, the Ethereum Foundation's one player, all the different layer 2 teams are other players, right? Us as community members are players too. We need to adopt layer 2. We need to educate people on it. We need to give feedback to the teams. We need to help as much as we can, right? Everyone that's using Ethereum today has a part to play, and that's why I call it the Ethereum scaling war effort. And basically we're seeing this play out now. So I'm very, very excited to see what happens with this hackathon. It's, as I mentioned yesterday when I was talking about the ETHGlobal Market Make winners, these kind of hackathons produce the highest quality kind of hacks that I've seen out of any kind of hackathon. Maybe ETH Denver comes a nice close second there, but basically you can't go wrong with an ETHGlobal hackathon. So if you're a dev wanting to work on this, definitely go register. The link will be in the YouTube description for you. So Owaki from Gitcoin Grants basically posted a teaser image here That grants round 9 is coming soon, of course. I can't remember the exact date. Maybe it's got it here. Okay, he says here there's a countdown, 28 days. So 28 days from now is like the end of the month, basically. I think from memory, it starts on like March 1st or 2nd. But anyway, they've got an updated website, it looks like, which looks very nice. One thing with Gitcoin, I love the platform, but I figured the website could use a lot of work. But yeah, they've got like a nice little updated website here. And basically, they're asking people to slide into their DMs to get involved. And what getting involved means is becoming a matching partner, essentially. I think if you are someone who has made a lot of money, I guess, during the bull market and you feel like becoming a matching partner, you can do this and you don't have to put in much money. I've seen matching partners just put in $10,000 and that might be a lot of money to some of you. I'm not saying it isn't, but it's not like you have to put in $100,000 or $1 million, right? Some people do that, some projects do that, and that's fine. But you can put in, I'm sure you can put in any amount you want. And even if you don't want to do the matching, you can just donate, right? So you're going to get a chance to donate and get your donations matched. I think this is going to be the biggest Gitcoin matching round ever because of all the money everyone's made. Hopefully we don't get a massive crash, before this Gitcoin grants round starts because it might scare people off. But in general, I think, all the projects have made a lot of money. People are giving back. This is just amazing. So yeah, really looking forward to the next Gitcoin grants round here. As I said, it's in about a month or 28 days. I was doing my math wrong there, so it should be like March 10th, right? Not March 1st. I was saying 18 days in my head instead of 28 days. But yeah, it's coming soon. You'll hear all about it because I'll shill it on Twitter because I want you all to donate to it because they even have layer 2 tech kind of integrated, so I really want to see Gitcoin supported, and I'm probably going to talk about it on every refuel while the round's going on and reminding you guys to donate. But anyway, I'll move on for now. But yeah, good to see them updating the site here. So Danny Ryan put out the latest ETH2 quick update. These are updates that he puts out every now and again to basically give you a quick update on ETH2. This was a very quick update. There wasn't much here, but there actually was a bit of info that I wanted to talk about, which was basically, I think maybe the link's not in here. Essentially, I think what he was talking about here is that there was an ETH2 workshop for the ETH1 to ETH2 merge and sharding, and there was also a lot of talk around stateless clients. If you don't know what that is, you can Google stateless clients or go on ETH research and you'll see it there. But basically, the biggest thing happening with ETH2 right now is I think the next hard fork, which is going to happen in I think June or July of this year. And what it's going to do is it's going to adjust a few things, a few bug fixes with the I think the reward payouts and penalties and things like that. It's going to get the kind of platform ready for stateless clients, and I think it's got something to do with the merge as well. So yeah, a lot of stuff happening in ETH2 land, but you probably aren't hearing about it because a lot of it is happening behind the scenes. A lot of it is just waiting, right? As I've mentioned before on the refuel, the researchers and developers are now waiting, for the beacon chain to be live and running perfectly for 6 to 12 months before they feel comfortable doing any major kind of things like adding sharding or doing the merger. I think they're probably going to wait a year, at least, which will put us to December of this year until even kind of putting a timeline on the merger. It's already been done on testnets where they merged ETH1 into ETH2, but merging ETH1 into ETH2 right now would be incredibly risky and not worth it. Like, yes, okay, cool, we'd be able to like do it sooner, but the risk that something goes wrong is far too great, because ETH1 is a $250 billion network. And ETH2 is a new network that's only been live for like 3 months, or not even like 2.5 months, and is using a proof of stake consensus mechanism that has only been live for 2.5 months, right? And it's novel and it's new. So yeah, we need to kind of wait for that to happen. So yeah, I mean, and on top of that, I guess like the main two questions I get asked for timelines on is EIP 1559 and the merger. 1559 I still expect to come this year. I expect it to come, Q2 latest kind of, not Q2, maybe towards the end of Q2, but probably in Q3 sometime. So, maybe July, August, September sort of thing. But definitely expect it to come this year. And then the merger will be next year. There is no way the merger is happening this year unless there's some kind of emergency reason to do it. Maybe the miners got together and revolting against us for putting EIP 1559 in. I don't think that's a huge risk, but yeah, I that's kind of the timeline right now. 6 to 9 months was what Tim Byko gave for EIP 1559, and that was like a few days ago. So that lines up with the kind of like, or July, August, September kind of timeline there. And then the merger, as I said, there's no dates or timelines given, but I know for a fact it's not happening this year. Definitely not happening this year. So look for it next year. I hope it happens next year. I'm not going to try and get your hopes up and say it's definitely happening next year. There could be unforeseen kind of things here, but I'm pretty confident it will happen next year. Not sure on the time, but just be aware that everyone wants this to happen. We want to get off proof of work as soon as possible, but we want to do it in a safe way, and we don't want to basically blow up the ETH1 chain in the process. All right, so the last thing, I tweeted about kind of flash loans before, and I said flash loans are probably the most sci-fi thing Ethereum has ever produced. Now, for those who don't know what flash loans are, they are mind-boggling and amazing, and there's so many things you can do with them. But basically, I'll give you a quick explanation of what flash loans are. So what Ethereum allows you to do is you can do anything you want in one Ethereum block, right? So basically, an Ethereum block is about 15 seconds. So if you want to do kind of like something with flash loans, what you would do is you would borrow, for starters, flash loans let you borrow any amount of capital you want, right, from a platform. So you could go borrow $100 million from Aave, for example, right, without any collateral with a flash loan, because it's only gonna complete the borrow if you pay that back in the same Ethereum block. So what you would do, and I'll give you an example because it's easier to explain. Say you wanted to kind of like flash loan $100 million, right? And you wanted to do something, people use it for like hacks and things like that, but maybe you just wanted to do an arbitrage opportunity, a massive on-chain arbitrage opportunity. So say you got $100 million, right? You flash loaned it, and then you have to do this all in the same Ethereum block. So all in the same 15 seconds. You flash loan, you do your thing, right? You do your ARB, whatever, and then the ARB is profitable, so you take the profit from it, and then you pay back the original flash loan to Aave or wherever you flash loan it from, and then the Ethereum block is mined, and all the transactions are confirmed, and it goes through. So you can do like zero collateral borrowing as long as you pay it back in the same block. So the transaction is valid if all those transactions are valid, right? So if you flash loan, did the ARB, paid it back, and everything squares off, right? You paid back the amount you were supposed to, then it's fine. So the reason why flash loans are so cool and so sci-fi is because if you really think about it, what flash loans allow you to do is pause time, essentially, right? You can control the entire Ethereum blockchain for 15 seconds and do whatever you want within the Ethereum blockchain as long as it follows the rules. And the rules is that you pay back the flash loan at the end of whatever you've done, essentially, right? And anyone in the world can do this. There is no need for you to get like any kind of approval, right? This is DeFi. There is no capital requirement here because you don't have to put any collateral up, right? So literally like literally anyone with any amount of money, you could be, poor and just have a smartphone to your name and do this, right? So this is just like, this is why it's sci-fi to me, because it's just crazy that this kind of simple primitive flash loans, the concept of being able to just borrow as much money as you want, and as long as you pay it back in the same kind of Ethereum block, you can do whatever you want with it, is incredibly powerful. And also, on that note, if you say you do like the arbitrage transaction and it fails, right? The whole transaction gets reverted, right? The flash loan, the arbitrage, the payback, like that whole thing. You can set the logic, when you're doing this. But if it doesn't actually succeed, then it's like the transaction never even happened. It's actually because it's not included in a block. The only way you'll know that a flash loan happened is if you look at the mempool logs, and the only way you get the mempool logs is by monitoring the mempool, which a company called Block Native does. Actually, if you want to check them out, they have like a mempool explorer. But basically, it's like you control the whole universe for 15 seconds, but or the entire blockchain for 15 seconds. But if you do something that doesn't follow the rules, right? You don't pay the loan back, the whole transaction gets reverted, and it's like nothing ever happened. So it's just so cool, right? And explaining this to someone is I know it's hard, and I know I probably confused you a little bit here. I suggest Googling it. There are some videos out there that explain it better than I just did. But this concept is just awesome, and it's uniquely enabled by blockchains, uniquely enabled by DeFi, and uniquely enabled by Ethereum. And it's something that people use all the time, and you just don't even know about it, right? You probably hear about it whenever there's a hack or something happening, but it's used for much more than that every single day, probably in every Ethereum block, I don't know. But basically, that's just as crazy, right? Flash loans are my favorite kind of thing in Ethereum, I think. My favorite primitive in Ethereum. And that's why I called them, kind of so sci-fi, because it's something that I don't think many people would have envisioned, even just a couple of years ago, as being kind of something that people would use to basically do these arbitrages and do these kind of hacks and exploit, economic exploits. Probably not hacks, but like economic exploits that we've seen happen before. So yeah, just wanted to give a quick note there on that one. But I've gone way over time here, so that's it for today, everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching. Do subscribe to that YouTube channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up. Join the Discord channel. Subscribe to the Daily Gwei newsletter. And I will catch you all next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.